Welcome to the Sound of Movement podcast. Today we're wrapping up the week of talking about building a balanced program. And we've been talking about balancing strength, flexibility, and fitness into your workouts all week. But today we're going to be talking about why we don't include cardio in our Foundations program.
Morning, everybody. This is your first rodeo with the tribe. My name's Yanni Burmeister. I've got two absolute legends around the table with me. Phil White, our resident physiotherapist from ADPT Physio, and Rad across the table, my amazing brother. And behind the mixer, behind the computer, behind the deck, we have the voice of God, the world's sexiest man, Richard Lellies. We need like a crowd goes wild sound effect that comes over there. Now, we are going to talk about breaking rules today. We're going to be rule breakers today. We're going to break our own rule, which is to create an efficient workout that's balanced in strength, flexibility, and fitness. And there is a very, very strategic and specific reason why. We're going to take a deep dive into that today. And this is off the back of many, many great questions that people have when they come in. They follow us for a while on the podcast. Big shout out to everyone listening on the podcast. Give us a 5-star review. We will love you a long time. They follow us on YouTube. Big shout out and love sent to everyone on YouTube. Smash that like button. And then eventually at some point they either jump onto my Inner Circle email list or our UMS Movement Mastermind Facebook group. Massive love sent to both of you guys. If you're on the stream live, let us know where you are and who you are so we can send you some love. And then eventually they buy our Foundations program or subscribe to our UMS. And they're shocked. They're shocked because the first phase of training, the first block of training is a general preparations phase, which is all about balancing the body on a micro level. So on a macro level, we talk about strength, flexibility, and fitness. We talk about exercise or stimulus versus recovery or catalyst. That is where the adaptations are occurring. We've gone deep on that on Wednesday's show with an exclusive physio special. You can go back and listen to that podcast if you missed it. Today we're going to talk about the micro, what's happening on the micro level, because it's all about symmetry, it's about joint stability, and it's about an introduction to pairing exercises and pairing strength and flexibility for the very first time. And it is a lot to get your head around. It's a lot. There's a lot of really important adaptations that we want to occur there. And during that general preparations phase, it is a short period of time where we sort of have to put cardio on the back burner, but it's only very, very temporary. And also, if you stick to the right time frame, you're going to find that you do elevate your heart rate enough to get a little bit of stimulus. It's certainly not as effective as going for a run or really doing a high intensity interval training circuit, but that is not the goal of a general preparations phase.
Well, it's also about learning how to use a program and how to use tempo and things like that. And these are things that people don't understand the importance of. Like when a program says, 3010 tempo, that is strict. It means you should, if you really do it properly until you're really good at counting, you should have a metronome going next to you so that you're doing a strict 3-second eccentric phase. And when you're doing all of that, and if you also try and throw in, because cardio at the end of the day, at least the way that we do it when we do it in circuits, the idea is to really get your heart rate up in it. And when that's going on and when your heart rate is highly elevated, you're dumber and you can't think properly, and there's just too much going on.
Yep. If you are watching live and you have done the Foundations program, do let us know. Let us know if you're happy about the lack of cardio, because I feel like with this audience, there's
absolutely. That's question of the day. Maybe Richie can type that up there. We want to know if anyone tunes in live. We want to know if you've done the Foundations program and what results you got from it, and how you felt about the lack of cardio. Did it stifle you? Were you shocked?
Were you stoked?
Most likely.
Well, what we say to people ask us in Foundations foundations, what should I do for cardio? And my answer is always do anything. And people kind of expect a little bit more coaching than that, but the whole point is that we don't want to coach you on too many different things during this phase. So what we mean by do anything is do any of the really basic cardio. Like if you're somebody that's really unfit, go for a brisk walk. If you're somebody that's
doesn't need to be a brisk walk if you're unfit.
Yeah, go for a walk. Do some cycling. Use
this
just a
from
stationary
Yanni's
roller.
experience of getting into walking and running recently.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, like you can do anything, but consider it like it's a second session for you. Don't put it all into the same thing. Just focus on the basics with the foundations and nail it and get it right. Tick that box off and move on.
Just before Phil jumps in, and that's why the program is only 4 days. The Foundations program is only designed to be done on 4 days, 2 days, then 1 day off to do some cardio, and then 2 days on, and then 2 days off. And there is a lot of strategic reasons why we've done the program split like that. It's usually an intro program for many people, but for some people who are really advanced and they're going back to do it just to balance their bodies properly once and for all, overcoming a bit of maybe neglect, then you can add stuff. You can add Wednesday, you can add some straight arm scapular strength, you can add that on Saturday as well, but we don't include that in the base program because it's too much for most people who are doing the foundations.
Yeah, and one thing that gets my goat when I look at fitness classes around, like at F45 is probably the classic one where they get people doing kind of fitness like cardio sessions where they're basically using like complex weightlifting movements as fitness and then without actually teaching much of the technique. And I think it's just so key in this foundations phase is like this is when you're learning how to do these strength movements in a with a focus on technique, a focus on balance, and so that by the time you've gone through the FMS and you're starting to do the foundations phase, then when you're getting into the actual cardio circuits, now you're doing squat jumps where you've just done a whole phase on learning how to do it, get your knee tracking right, get your hip hinge right, like all of these things. You've just spent a whole bunch of time learning technique, so that now when you do it in at speed with while you're puffed, while you're not sort of doing focus coke and abdominal bracing and all of that, it's giving you that foundation so that you're ready to do that safely. Because cardio may seem like it's sort of this easy lightweight thing versus resistance training, but when you're doing lots and lots of reps and you're doing it at speed, that's a really challenging thing. And if you're trying to figure out technique at the same time, it's hard times.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is one thing I want to make clear for anyone who is sort of a little bit more well versed in jargon, in industry jargon. You can replace foundations with general preparations. The foundations is a name that we adopted after from a friend of ours who has a similar program, Foundations and Progressions Principle, and it is just a general preparations program, meaning it is training to prepare you for training. Basically, it is as the late Charles Poliquin used to say, it is really preconditioning your body so that you do not hurt yourself. It's increasing your load capacity in many different ways, and we're going to go into that in just a sec, to prevent you from overdoing it and injuring yourself down the track, so that you can go and throw yourself into much more rigorous, much more intense, much more uncontrolled environments, dare I say it, and not hurt yourself.
Yeah, you're giving yourself a buffer.
Yeah.
But for anyone who's listened to me talk before, I love my bucket and tap analogy, and it's been a bit adopted in this show as talking about load capacity. So just real basics. So basically, any time you are putting load through a system, you're turning on the tap, and how much water you can handle from that tap is how big your bucket is. So if you're, maybe you're for Richie, who's just got back into running and he's cooked his calves on after doing one run, he's put a lot of water in that tap while the calf for his bucket is quite small, and now he's got real salt calves. Bucket for his calves are quite small. So that's just a very simple, quick explanation of that bucket tap analogy. But basically, the Foundations program is a really good way of making sure that everyone's kind of buckets at the level that then they can handle, sort of a 5 day a week UMS program. That's exactly right.
Let us be very specific here. It is not the best program for you if you want to go running.
Yes, yeah.
If you want to go running, it's going to help, but you need to run or walk or find the best entry point for that. So that's why Richie, when he went running, he's done lots of UMS training in the gym, but he hadn't run for a long time. And he went out and ran for the first time, and he hadn't done any foundations program for running. And and that's what I've been doing. I literally had to start walking, and so many people have commented on my posts on my personal Instagram page and my Twitter account and things like that, going, "Why are you walking if you're so fit?" And I'm like, well, yeah, I'm great at gym.
Specificity, baby.
But
specificity.
if I jump back in the boxing ring now, I'd get my ass handed to me. I'd probably only last 60 seconds because I'm not conditioned to that anymore, Same as if I tried to play soccer or rugby league, which is what I used to do, I wouldn't cope very well, I might have a few of the skill attributes still there.
I've got back to beach volleyball since coming back from rural Western Australia, where I've been for 2 months, and before I went away, I was just quite fit for volleyball, and you'd play a point and be tired, but then the next point you'd be ready to go again. And now it's just I play one point and I'm a bit tired, and then the next point starts and I've kind of got my hands on my knees and sucking some deep breaths in, and then I play another point, and then it's you just get this cumulative fatigue. And when I was away, I was doing exercise every day. I was in the gym for hours every day because there was literally nothing else to do. But I wasn't doing that specificity around interval training, recovery, basically interval training. And so now, although I'm fit in many other ways, volleyball is just kicking my ass at the moment. So it's all about specificity when it comes to this stuff.
Yeah, that's right. And so let's go and talk about how we do it, because the Foundations is our base level program, and we want to teach you guys. We want to leave you guys with something that you can take away in action today. It's time to take action. It's time to flip the switch. If you have been training in an unbalanced way and you're specializing, and you might be experiencing some specialist injuries. What do we call it yesterday? The specialist disease. Mm-hmm. Overuse injuries are a specialist disease. Mm-hmm. Then it's time for you to really make a change, and we want to help you do that today by sort of lifting the curtain and showing you how we do it in our program. And the easiest way to do it is to show you how we do it in our Foundations program, because it's just less to get your head around. So Rad, why don't you share with us what starting from the top, from the training split, working down to an intra-set, what it looks like, exercise paired with stretching.
So
paired with stretching.
From a training split, it goes upper body on Monday, lower body on Tuesday, rest on Wednesday, upper body on Thursday, lower body on Friday, rest on Saturday and Sunday. So what that does is that really maximizes what the research says is the optimal recovery time for a muscle group before you train the same muscle group again, which most of the research says between 48 and 72 hours for most people is the optimal recovery time. So we push that out to that 72-hour window because
most people don't prioritize recovery enough.
I mean, when
if you're confused on how to recover, check out Wednesday's episode.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and we tell people over and over again about how to just back it off, take it easy, and we still get people at the end of their first week saying, "Oh my God, I'm so sore." So because most people aren't used to this idea of having a program that's set that says, "I'm going to do these days in a week." I think most people are used to the idea of training when they feel like it. So
by the vibe.
Yeah, I don't feel like training today because I'm sore, so I'm not going to go. So that's a really, really different to all of a sudden saying, okay, well, these are the days I'm going to the gym. And the idea is that you meet that requirement regardless of how you feel. So that's, going back to the training split, you do upper body on Monday, then upper body on Thursday. So even if you do feel sore on Tuesday and Wednesday, by the time Thursday comes around, your muscles should have recovered enough to be able to go again. So that's the first thing. Then if we talk about within a workout, we have a 10-minute warm-up. So you do a body-specific warm-up. So there's an upper body warm-up for the upper body session that goes for 10 minutes and lower body for lower body. And when you're doing your workout, there's probably three things that I'd like to highlight that it makes the Foundations program really unique, and that if you don't have access to the Foundations program, then maybe you can consider this in your next week of training. The first is that we do predominantly unilateral movements. So we don't really use barbells in the Foundations program. And when we do, it is done on a unilateral movement, like for example on the single leg good
squat,
morning or single leg squat. So you're holding a barbell across your shoulders, but you're actually standing on one leg doing the movement. And the reason why we do that is because what we have found over our years and years of coaching is that usually when people do a foundations phase, there is a dominant side, and we want to try and iron out the imbalance between left to right side. So that's the first consideration. The second consideration is that push is always balanced with pull, so that goes for upper body and lower body. So for example, a push in the lower body would be a squat movement, even though it depends on the way that you look at the joint. But if you just think of opposing muscle groups, whereas a pull would be like a hamstring curl. So we're thinking of, loading the knee as the knee extends, and then loading the knee as the knee flexes, for example. Then the third consideration is balance, strength, and flexibility in a 1-to-1 ratio, which means that you'll do a strength movement for your upper body, and then whilst you're recovering, instead of just sitting there and resting the typical sort of 60 to 90 seconds or 90 seconds to 2 minutes, whatever your desired rest period is, instead of just sitting there doing nothing in that rest period, you're actually doing lower body mobility exercises or flexibility exercises. So unilateral movements, mostly so dumbbells for the upper body or standing on one leg for the lower body, split squats instead of squats, for example. Push-pull balance, so a balance between the joint systems, between the muscle systems in a joint, and strength and flexibility in a 1-to-1 ratio within the workout. Not, I do 6 sets of strength training and now I'm going to do 6 sets of flexibility training, like within the workout.
And there was, I zoned out for a second to read Tim Hughes' great comment here that he shared. Did you emphasize that there was also a huge emphasis and focus on the stability systems in the hip and the shoulder?
No.
And that's the last consideration, is that often when people have been training for a while, and this is where the foundations becomes spectacularly useful for someone who's very, very experienced in exercise. CrossFit is a great example. We've had a lot of CrossFitters who have gone through the Foundations program, and they'd kick my butt in a CrossFit workout, and they have great results going through the Foundations program, regressing for a little bit, maybe at the start of the year, out of season, off season, whatever it is, and they come out stronger and more effective at their sport because of this one thing, which is that there's a huge emphasis on the stability system. So you've got basically like a rotator cuff, dare I say it, in your hip, system of the glutes that you don't see on the outside, not the glute max or the glute med.
Well, it's not
The
technically the
piriformis.
glutes. Well, it's 6 different external
No, it's the
rotation
piriformis.
muscles.
It's the piriformis.
It's just
I can tip this table over and walk out
that's
of
a
here.
joke. That's a joke. It's an inside joke.
Yeah.
Let Phil explain that in a sec. But basically, there is a huge emphasis on the stability system, and the most obvious way to explain that is the rotator cuff in the shoulder, the internal, external rotators, the infraspinatus, teres minor, subscapularis. These muscles that are creating somewhat of a force coupling underneath the surface to locate the joint, to prevent glide or reduce glide in the joint and things like that. And the same thing is happening in the hip. And in most cases, particularly we've noticed group training formats, unless you're training with a really, really great strength coach who understands programming at a high level, these things are neglected. And over time, you can really, dare I say, cause wear and tear. I know Phil's hates that.
It's basically like you're pumping the accelerator without bringing in the brakes. Like you get this, like you're building on the big global muscles that are great at producing force, but then you've not got the ability to be able to control that glide within the joint that's causing the force.
I've got a mechanical engineering analogy.
Here we go.
It's like hotting up a car when you only hot up the engine and the turbo and the power without hotting up also or upgrading the suspension and the brakes.
Love it.
Ooh, how's that? That's pretty good though.
It's pretty good.
Yeah, that's pretty good. So imagine putting a huge V8 supercharged engine in a little hatchback and then not doing anything to the suspension and the brakes.
Yeah, and just to be clear, like when you are doing general strength movements with big global muscles, your stabilizing muscles will be put under load and force, so they will be getting stronger. But yeah, this is a way of like really targeting that and making sure that you're not undercooking it.
Yeah. So we have 10 minutes before we have to bring this in for a landing,
Which
and
I'll
then
spend ranting about piriformis for the whole time.
Yeah, and then get ready for our UMS online coaching live group coaching call, weekly group coaching call. So what I want to do is spend the last 10 minutes making this really, really useful for anyone who's tuned in and listening, who's not doing either our Foundations program, our at-home workouts program, or our UMS online coaching program, our progressions program. How can they take a little bit of this information away and deploy it into their own training? And from an obvious perspective, the first thing I would always suggest people do is to work with a coach who understands this for a period of time, so that you can do like a proper general preparations phase of training if you're new to exercise. If you've never done strength training before and you think, that's it, I'm going to really take action this year and I'm going to get into a gym, I'm going to join F45, or I'm going to join CrossFit, or I'm going to join Barry's boot camp, or I'm going to join that boot camp I've seen locally in my neighborhood where they're throwing weights around and they look like they're having fun and doing some great work, I would highly recommend that you spend 9 to 12 or 16 weeks doing a general preparations phase of training with a great strength coach first. It will be the best investment of your life. Next, for people who are maybe a little bit more along the way and just want to dabble in programming and sort of change up how they do things, what would your go-to be, Phil? I know what yours is going to be with, so we'll finish on Rad.
My go-to what?
Well, what would you say to someone who's been training for a while and they're watching this podcast and they want to adopt something that we're talking about here into their own training? What would you say?
Yeah, I think that like if
without blatantly plugging any of our programs.
No, but I think if you're already like ticking the box with getting like that balance between, push pull upper and lower body stuff, right? I think like it's really, and it's something that we're developing. Can we talk about the athletic development program yet that we're
Yep.
Yeah, so for those who follow the UMS, like straight arm strength is the Wednesday and optional Saturday workout. And something that I'm really passionate about and working with the guys on developing is an option for people who aren't on the calisthenic side of things and want to do a bit more sort of sport skills sort of stuff, so single leg program. So I think if you haven't, what I really like about the Foundations is it does have that unilateral focus. And I think if you haven't done any unilateral training in a while, give it a crack, because it will definitely make those stabilizing muscles work a bit harder, and it will, it's challenging and good.
and the reason why it's becoming a big part of our athletic development program for people who play football, rugby, NFL, soccer, ultimate frisbee, people that run around, beach volleyball, people that jump or run around and have change in direction a lot as part of their sport, which we always encourage people to find a way to demonstrate your skill attributes that you're developing in the gym. That's you need stability in the hip.
So I think the Foundations program does a wonderful job at getting you used to some of that. So I think
So Phil's recommendation is to do a phase of training that includes a lot of unilateral movement. Richie, without blatantly plugging one of our programs, what would you recommend someone do based on the discussion of today? If they're already a little bit more experienced,
I think Dave Clark's would be to ditch cardio.
Don't waste time and stretch when you're resting.
Don't waste time and stretch when you're resting. Yeah. Good. Oh, you might have stolen Rad's.
Don't sit around on your phone, stretch.
Don't sit. What was that? Don't sit around on your phone while you're resting. No. Make it productive.
Sit around, stretch with your phone while you're resting.
All right, Rad. You have 6 minutes. You have 6 minutes, so you can really go deep here.
Well, I've got a shameful plug because I'm going to just throw it out there. We are, because of what we've been talking about this week, honestly, if you're listening to all this and you're overwhelmed with it all, that is really, really normal. This is, even as strength coaches and Phil with all of his uni degrees, it takes a lot of time and work and trial and error to create a program that does all of this for you. It's taken us so long to do it. And if you really want to do it, then if you really want to be able to create a balanced workout and you want to, and then if you're smart and you've listened to this podcast or you're watching this show, then you should be thinking about Foundations first. You should be thinking, okay, I want to build a balanced workout, a balanced body. So these guys are saying I should start with the Foundations phase. save yourself the hassle, save yourself all of the problems that we've had trying to come up with the best thing, and just do our Foundations Phase 1 program. Because we're
shameful plug.
Well, we're putting it
trying
on.
to avoid
It's going to be the flash sale this weekend, so it is going to be, you're going to be able to get it only for the next 72 hours. And what we have never done before, because of the nature of what's going on in the world with COVID and everything, and so many people are still in lockdown, we're also including the Phase 1 of the UMS at-home workouts. And those themselves, although they aren't considered a foundations program, they use the balance principle of our training. It's still balanced push-pull, it's still balanced strength flexibility, and it is balanced with cardio as well.
They're really a version, an adaptation of the progressions program done with no equipment.
Yeah, but that's the point. So if you don't have, regardless of if you have equipment or not, that's still going to be a hugely advantageous tool in the toolbox. But if you don't have access to a gym right now, you can get started with that one, and then you can do the foundations program when you get into the gym. But honestly, like the time comes when if you're listening to all this and you're trying to figure it out, I've never ever been able to figure out what I know now without getting coaching. That like eventually you just have to say, all right, if I really want to get good at this, I just need to see how somebody else has done it first and learn from it. So that would be my advice.
I mean, watching you now getting coaching under Rogold, like, you live by that. Like,
yeah,
it's not just
I
words.
live by it. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I really do.
We've
And
all got coaches.
I've had so many coaches over the years, and I always, it's just so valuable. So get the foundations program, get started.
We've all got coaches. Now, I want to go through, we got some really great comments coming in from guys who have actually done our foundations program and sharing their experiences. I'm going to read these comments out. Tim Hughes, big shout out to you, Tim. I've loved watching you crush it in the group. You're doing really well, and it's good to see you so interactive. That's the best way to make use of these Facebook groups, both the UMS Movement Mastermind and the UMS Online Coaching Tribe. Hi guys, I just finished week 4 of Phase 1 Foundations, and after doing the at-home workouts beforehand, I was definitely missing the cardio side. In the at-home workouts, as we just said, it is more of an adaptation of the progressions program, so it is perfectly balanced strength, flexibility, and fitness. However, Tim says, listening to the cues from Rad during each workout and focusing on the muscle activation has really shown me some imbalances in my body, which easily offsets the lost endorphins from not doing cardio, which is really great. Like you've been able to overcome that missing piece that you enjoyed and double down on what you sort of should focus on right now and need. And here's the thing, a lot of people go from the at-home workouts and they love them and they go through all 4 phases and then they go back and do the foundations program and level up in many different ways and then go back and redeploy what they've learned back into the exact same at-home workouts and get better workouts, which is a great way of doing things, so well done, Tim. Dave Clark is saying, and Dave is a martial artist, I'm not sure. Dave, Taekwondo, yep. Dave says, I'm still doing the foundations program and now I've memorized all the push-pull exercises and stretches in between. You break out a sweat when streamlining it, so I'm not too fussed with no cardio, which is what I said. If you actually do stick to the timer, it's a slightly different cardiovascular adaptation that occurs, but it is still very beneficial for your body and you still do get a really nice little bit of cardio stimulus there. So that's really great share. Thank you very much, Dave Clark. It does take a couple of practices to get used to everything and not have to watch the tutorial videos between sets and dial in your form and technique and stuff like that. But once you get through that, probably the first phase of the program, you start to absolutely crush it. And Kurt Dyer has shared, I've really enjoyed the Foundations program. Currently at the end of phase 2, I also train in Kung Fu twice a week, along with the daily dose of the 18-minute mobility routine and regular walks. I've found my bucket is full without the need for added cardio. Keep up the great work. Oh, that's really cool. And I love the bucket analogy. It's just nice to see that people are starting to understand. We have like the most educated tribe, and it's so funny, Rad and I and Richard see this all the time as we're moderating these groups. We almost don't have to do much anymore because someone will ask a really great question and they'll get a dozen brilliant answers. It's very rare that I have to chime in and go and correct people with an answer. I just
love working with the people who listen and watch these shows, because when I work with them physio wise, they've already kind of got all the basics that usually have to spend a
Ages
couple of like
educating people
maybe
on,
a couple
yeah.
of appointments sort of explaining all this stuff and getting up to basics, but like they're like, oh yeah, I know all this stuff, like, so we can really work on the valuable stuff.
Yeah,
It's just,
you can dive deep. It's fantastic.
It's so great working with.
It's fantastic.
Engages, so.
It's the same as what Rad's coach, Roy Gold, says about him. He goes, you're a really great student, and it's because Rad spent a lot of time pre-framing and getting to understand everything, and so you don't ask as many base level questions.
Yeah,
You can
questions.
really dive in. I was going to be a bit nicer about it. You can really dive into the nitty gritty and just get stuck into the work, doing the work, which is the important part, and we love it. We love seeing it. So thank you very much. And thanks, guys, for sharing your stories. We do have to bring it in for a landing now because we've got
Just quickly on the dumb questions thing. If you are watching this and you feel like you have a dumb question, please
ask.
Yeah, I shouldn't have said that. I was referring to myself.
It was
I was referring to myself.
That is not what we want you to think.
Yeah,
Questions
I
are
was
never
referring to
dumb.
myself.
Like
Yeah.
it is really important that you ask questions and learn. That's what we're here for. That's what it's all about, guys. All right, guys. Well, that's it for the weekend. That's it for the week on Balance. Next week, we have another brilliant, exclusive, special edition physio show happening on Wednesday. We got Nilesh back joining Phil around the table, and we're going to be going into athletic development and performance. We're also having a really, really cool show next week. Next week is the entire week is on injury management and rehabilitation and load management. So if you've liked a little bit of the discussion about, the bucket analogy and things like that, next week is when we go deep, and we also go deep into one of Phil's really, really passionate subjects, which is pain science, and understanding the importance of how your psychology has a big effect on your recovery if you do have
and
an
I just
injury.
want to be really clear with injury management and rehab sort of talk, like, sure, it's about like people who have really hurt themselves and now doing sort of basic training, but really like injury management is all about how to like performance at the end of the day. Like if you get all this stuff right, like end stage progression is like peak performance. So even if you aren't injured at the moment, if you're competing at your best, like you'll still definitely get something out of this. So
yeah, absolutely.
tune in.
All right, guys, we're going to be jumping online in just a few minutes to the UMS Online Coaching Tribe Facebook page. Get yourself ready over there. We got lots and lots to talk about if you are part of that group. Otherwise, for everyone else, we'll see you next week. Thank you very much for joining us. Health is about performance, not just body image.
You better be willing to accept what you're going to have to do to get there.
We'll start focusing on movement goals, strength goals, flexibility goals.
When you nail that skill, that's there forever.
The body image goal doesn't get you that
It's
far.
the consistency and frequency that's going to get you there. It's not the intensity.
There's no shortcuts to mastery and movement. Destination doesn't change overnight, but your direction will.
The gym is not the place to beat up.